Today in Giraffe, we're going to be taking a look at some more advanced drawing tools and how you can incorporate them into your day-to-day workflow. So we're going to be using this site here on the screen on the corner of Harris and George Street in Sydney, Australia, and we're going to start to build out and complete this project. So the first one that I want to look at is the X-ray click function. So at the moment in Giraffe, when you select on an object, even if there is underlying features, it selects the one that is sort of the highest up within that hierarchy. However, when you are dealing with a complex project, sometimes you may want to select the geometry that's below, or at least choose which one you would like to select from. So Giraffe incorporates an X-ray mode that we can toggle on if I navigate up to the more drawing tools. So up here on the drawing toolbar, more drawing tools, and I'm going to navigate to the selection mode. And what's listed here is quite intuitive, different selection tools available, but there's the X-ray click function. So if I toggle that on, and now when I click on a geometry, it asks me which one I would like to select, because it can see that within my cursor, there is two features or geometries within that selection range. And so now what I can do is actually toggle between them and select the underlying usage if I wanted to edit that for some reason. So a powerful tool when you do have quite a complex build and you're trying to control that selection mode. The next feature I'm going to talk to is the Eyedropper tool, or match properties as you might otherwise know it as. And the way I'm going to demonstrate that is I'll just navigate into 2D mode, so T on my keyboard. And what I'm going to do is just grab the basic rectangle up the top here, draw my rectangle, toggle back into 3D mode. And let's say I want to now transform this plain geometry into the retail usage that we have on the other side as well. So what we need to do here is if I select the geometry that I want to change or that I want to match the properties of another, navigate up to the more drawing tools, I'm going to go down to clipboard, navigate across and select the Eyedropper tool, which you can also see the hotkey for that is Y on your keyboard, which is a handy one to know. So I'm going to select the Eyedropper tool, and now I'm going to click on what I want this geometry to replicate. So I'm going to select that usage there, which is my retail usage, and you can see that that has adopted all of the properties that were captured in this usage, even the filleted corners that we have on this building. And the next one under the clipboard tab up the top, navigating to the more drawing tools, going into clipboard. So a lot of these are sort of self-explanatory, but it is good to point out that when you are copy and pasting geometry between projects, maybe it will paste aligned to its original position. So if I was to open up another project, copy the geometry that we see here on the screen and Control V, that would paste aligned to that new project along Harris Street and George Street. So it is worth noting that if you're wanting to copy and paste it into a new location, you do have the option here to paste to center of the map, or the hotkey is Control-Shift-V. All right, so moving down, we've got the Move tool. So there's a few useful functions in here, and I want to point out and draw attention to the base point move, base point rotate, and mirror. So if I select the base point move, what this does is allow us to move geometry in a more controlled fashion. So if I navigate into 2D mode, it's asking me, I've selected the geometry that I want to move, and now it's asking me for a point of origin that I want to move this geometry. So I'm going to hold S on my keyboard to snap to this corner here. And now what it's asking me for is a destination point. So if we wanted to move this for some reason up aligned to the start of this landscape, we can click that destination, and that way we control the move through those 2 points. So rather than your typical method of moving geometry around, the drag and drop method, we do have that more controlled vision of moving around that geometry. And we also have that available through the base point rotate option. So if I navigate back into the Move tool, base point rotate, if I select that there, now what I can do is much the same, is hold S on my keyboard to select the origin, select again to identify the length of the object, and then now I can sort of select that rotation quite precisely with a degrees appearing there. So if I wanted to rotate it 10 degrees, I can do that and it will snap to that 10 degrees. So the alternative to that is you can drag the selection box and rotate it that way. So two methods there, one a more controlled and precise version. All right, so we're actually, for this next part, I'm going to toggle into 3D and we're going to delete this usage that we created. And what I want to do is, for this project, I actually want to mirror everything that I have on this side across to the adjacent side along Union Street laneway there. So what I can do is actually select all of this. So holding Shift on my keyboard and dragging upwards allows that selection method, the marquee selection, to grab all of that geometry. And what I want to do is I first want to copy this geometry, because when I mirror it, it will mirror it without a copy. So I'm going to toggle into 2D mode actually. I'm going to hold Option or Alt on my keyboard and just drag this copy across like that. So I'm sort of happy with that positioning there. And now I want to mirror that and flip it over so it's the inverse. And we've got these indents facing each other. So the way we can do that is if I navigate up into my more drawing tools again, and I'm going to navigate to Move, and we've got Mirror here. So, or Shift M on your keyboard is the shortcut for that one then. So I'm going to select Mirror. I want to very simply sort of mirror through the center here. So I'm going to select the start of the plane and hold Shift to make sure my plane is snapped up the page. Select Finalize, and you can see that flip over, and now I have the inverse of my adjacent building, and my project is really starting to come together now. Now we do want to make some slight tweaks to that new tower that we just created on the right hand side there, and we're going to utilize a few methods that we have up here in the more drawing tools. And if I navigate down to Edit, so here we can see a number of tools, and feel free to explore some of them here in your own time, but we're going to talk to the union and the intersection and also the split function there. So what I'm going to do is select the split one first, and that's X on your keyboard is the hotkey for that. So we can see here, this is the X-ray mode again being demonstrated. So I can select my object that I would like to split, navigate up into the Edit tab, select Split, and then it's asking me to, where would you like to split this geometry? And I would just like to split it through the middle here. So I'm going to select the start, double click to finish, and now that single geometry has now been separated into two geometries that can be controlled individually. And so I can now drag them back. And maybe what we want to do actually is open that up and snap that back there. I'm going to remove the green space on the roof. And then I'm also going to do the same thing, drag this back and remove that node. And let's drag that back once more. And so now we've got our separation. And so now what I want to do is I actually want to, let's shrink this tower here, just using A on my keyboard to lower those levels. And I'd like to create another tower that's similar to this one, but on this corner here facing George Street. So I'm just going to delete that for now. And I'm actually going to remove this as well. So this one's going to be a little bit strange in its form. And let's wrap that around like that. Going to toggle into 2D mode. And let's actually rotate this to align with this boundary here. So I'm going to grab my base point move. And I'm going to select this corner here, and let's align it to the boundary here. And now I'm going to get my base point rotate. Base point rotate, hold S to snap to that point, S again to snap to the other end of the geometry, and then once more snapping to the boundary line here. So now we can see that geometry is rotated, and we've got alignment to that boundary along Union Street there, which is as intended. And now we're going to take a look at the union tool. So we've got this geometry over here, and I'm actually going to, let's adjust it slightly there. I'm going to copy that. So we've got something similar, and this is what we're going to use to actually merge together. I'm going to remove them, drag that back in, and maybe it's something like this that we're actually wanting to add to this leg here. So the building sort of wraps around, and maybe there's some sort of courtyard in the middle here. So a bit of an unorthodox shape. So if I navigate into 3D mode, we can see that those are actually stacked on top of each other. And that's because they are on the same layer. So if I select this one here, we come over here and change that to my default layer, we'll see them drop down and overlap because they are no longer on the same layer. Now what I can do with both of them selected, navigate up to my more drawing tools. I want to navigate to edit, and we have the union function here. So if I select union, we can see that that has now joined together and we have one single geometry. So albeit there was a little nib here that happened, but we can sort of quite easily remove those nodes to straighten up that edge there. So we've got our intended design through the union of those two individual geometries. We also have available the intersection tool. So similar to the union tool, if I navigate into 2D mode and let's just draw a very simple retail usage here. And this is going to be our intersection point. So this sort of finger of the building here we're going to capture. And I'm just going to navigate into 3D mode, and we can see that again is stacking. So I'll need to make sure that that is on a separate layer there so we get that overlap. And now what I'm going to do, hold shift, select the adjacent geometry that I want to highlight this intersection, navigate up to the more drawing tools, go down to edit, and we've got intersection here. So when I select that, it's going to cut out everything apart from that intersecting geometries that we originally had. So we can also explore options using that tool. And so the last thing I want to cover is actually the command list. So if you hit spacebar on your keyboard, that will bring up basically a library of all the commands that you can do within Giraffe. So there's a number of ones here that are actually grayed out. And so it's got a little prompt there that's asking you to select something first. So that's just because you don't have a geometry selected. So if I select this geometry, hit spacebar again, we can see that now they are all active commands. And here you can see the Eyedropper tool as well and the associated shortcut. So if you're ever confused about where the tool is or where you can locate it, spacebar is a great tool to search for it as well. So it'll bring up this list and I can search for Eyedropper, and then it populates that to the front of the list and I can start matching properties. So a great little tip there to remember. And that's about everything. So thanks again for watching, guys, and we'll see you in the next one.